Hi, fifth grade. Today's math lesson is going to be 1.3, and this one is over equivalent and simplifying fractions. So if you remember from yesterday, we already touched on equivalent fractions a little bit. We're going to review that, and then we're going to talk about what simplifying fractions means. Let's start up here with some vocabulary just to make sure we don't forget this word. Equivalent fractions. Thinking back to what we learned yesterday in 1.2, equivalent fractions are two fractions that have the same value. So two fractions that are worth the same amount, but remember they might look different. They might have different numbers in there, or the slices might be different sizes, but that's okay because they still represent the same amount. And remember, to find an equivalent fraction, we multiply. And that is going to make our numbers bigger. Equivalent fractions, we're making each of those numbers on the fraction bigger by multiplying them. Our new word for today that we need to know is called simplify fractions. Simplifying fractions means that we're going to get a fraction into its simplest form. And what that means is we want to make that fraction have the smallest numbers possible. So simplifying, we are trying to get the smallest numbers for our fraction. In order to get smaller numbers, instead of multiplying like we were for equivalent fractions, we are going to divide. So to simplify fractions, we divide to make smaller numbers. Which makes sense. If we want the numbers to get bigger, we need to multiply because that's how we get bigger numbers. If we want the numbers to get smaller, we need to divide because that is how we get smaller numbers. So that is what we're going to be doing today with our fractions. Let's practice a couple, and I bet you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. So first I'm going to put equivalent over here. And looking back at my definition, equivalent fractions means I'm going to multiply. Whatever number we multiply by, they're going to call that the multiplier. So whatever number I choose to multiply by is what they're going to call the multiplier. Let's try one out and see. If I give us the fraction 3/4, and I want to change it to be 6/8 because those are equivalent, what would my multiplier be? What I'm asking is, what would I need to multiply 3/4 by to get 6/8? So you're either thinking 3 times what gives me 6 or 4 times what gives me 8. Remember, we have to multiply by the same on the top and bottom. Hopefully you're thinking 2. If we do 3 times 2, that makes it a 6, and 4 times 2 makes it an 8. So our multiplier would be 2, because that is what we multiplied by. Let's try another one. If I give us the fraction 5/6, and I want to change it to be 20/24. What would my multiplier be in order to change 5/6 to the equivalent fraction 20/24? What would I need to multiply the top and bottom by to get there? Hopefully you said 4. 5 times 4 would give me 20. 6 times 4 would give me 24. So my multiplier is 4 because that is what I had to multiply by. All right, let's do one more of these. If I give us the fraction 2/10, and I want my next fraction to have a 70 on the bottom. Let's first figure out our multiplier, and then we'll see if we can fill in that top number as well. So looking across, I know I have a 10 right now, and I want it to be a 70. What would my multiplier need to be to get from 10 to 70? It would need to be a 7. We would need to multiply 10 times 7 to get 70. If I multiplied by 7 on the bottom, I have to do the same on the top. So I'm going to do a times 7 up here, and then I'm working out the top. 2 times 7. 2 times 7 would be 14. So my new equivalent fraction would be 14/70ths. Alrighty, now let's look at simplifying. So I'm going to go over here and put simplify. And when we are simplifying, instead of calling it a multiplier, we can't call it that because we're not multiplying. Instead, we are dividing to simplify. So this is called a divisor. Whatever number I choose to divide by is called the divisor. Let's see if we can simplify a couple of these. If I give you the fraction 6/10, and I want to simplify that so that it is 3/5, what is my divisor? So you're thinking, what would I have to divide 10 by to make it a 5? Or what would I need to divide 6 by to make it a 3? Hopefully, you said 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So our divisor is a 2, because that is what we divided by. Let's try another one. 20/30ths, and we want to simplify it down so that it is 2/3. We are looking for a divisor. What number can we divide 20 by to make it a 2? Or what can we divide 30 by to make it a 3? Some of these might be tricky if we don't know our multiplication facts, so use that chart and try to figure it out if you're not sure. What could we divide 20 by to get 2? What could we divide 30 by to get 3? Hopefully, in your mind, you were thinking 10. 20 divided by 10 is 2. And if I divide by the 10 on the top, I have to do the same on the bottom. So 30 divided by 10 is 3. So our divisor was 10. That is what we divided by. All right, one more of these as an example here. If I give you the fraction 16/40ths, and we want to simplify it down so that it has a 5 on the bottom. I want a 5 on the bottom. First, we need to figure out our divisor, and then I bet we can figure out that top number. So just looking across the bottom, because that's what I know right now, I want to get from 40 down to 5. So what would I need to divide 40 by to get to 5? 8 would be our divisor. 40 divided by 8 gives me 5. If I divide by 8 on the bottom, I have to do the same thing on the top of my fraction. So I'm going to put divided by 8 up here, and then I have to work that out. 16 divided by 8. What is 16 divided by 8? It is 2. So 16/40ths simplified down would be 2/5. Nice work. Today on your homework, you are going to be looking at fractions and either finding the multiplier if we're making the numbers bigger, or if we are making the numbers smaller, you are going to be finding the divisor. Don't forget, you can use your multiplication chart if you need to help you find these things. Good luck. Do your best.